Thanks for tuning in to Bartender Administration with the blends of the virtual world. My name is Joe Schofield, and over the course of the syllabus we're going to be discussing a variety of topics. These are topics that might not necessarily feature in our day-to-day lives, working in a hospitality venue, behind a bar or in a restaurant, but they're skills from the more corporate side of the industry. It is my hope that through these virtual seminars you can continue to learn and understand these skills in the comfort of your own home. All of these workshops come with detailed course content that you can utilise in your day-to-day working life. This virtual seminar is all about communication. So why is it important to be a great communicator? One of the most important factors is that you can get your message across in a professional and efficient manner. You can also persuade people to your way of thinking. You can become much more productive and efficient with the task at hand. In the corporate side of things, you can help define your goals and what you want to achieve. And one of the most important things that you must remember about communication is it's not necessarily just about talking, but it's also about listening to the person that you're communicating with as well. Communication is one of the key factors that helps you build rapport with your colleagues or your guests in your place of work. In essence, having great communication skills can help your career grow. A couple of years ago I was working as a junior bartender at the Savoy, and I made the decision to move to Singapore, where I was stepping up to be the group bar manager of Tippling Club and a handful of other outlets. And having great communication skills was something I needed to be able to be successful in that role. I was communicating with people from different walks of life, different cultures, different backgrounds, and also with different positions of authority within inside the business. Having these communication skills was vitally important to the success of my role. Verbal communication is one of the main ways to communicate with people. This is the use of words to convey your message, such as writing, texting, WhatsApp, and also the use of email. Some examples of oral communication might be delivering a speech as a keynote speaker, having a face-to-face conversation, listening to the radio, and one of the most common ones that we use on a day-to-day basis is answering the phone. When you answer the phone, it's very important to answer it with a smile. This is one of the first things that I learnt in hospitality. It's an opportunity to be able to give the person on the receiving end of the phone call an insight to your hospitality and level of service, and an indication of how they may feel when they come in the venue. A briefing sheet is a form of both written and oral communication. The importance of the briefing is paramount. It really helps you set the tone and energy for a service, whilst giving you the opportunity to educate and inform your staff on certain products that they might be selling, new menu items, or even information that is crucial to the success of service. Perhaps even down to the times of reservations, regular guests. As part of the seminar, you can find a downloadable briefing sheet that you can utilise in your workplace. In hospitality, sometimes negative issues do arise. It's important to tackle these in an encouraging and positive way. Perhaps if a member of staff has forgotten something quite important, everybody can learn and adapt from the situation, and you can work together to find a solution to the challenge that has arisen. One of the best tips that I know about how to create a rapport or a connection with your colleagues, people, or even guests at the bar is asking them questions. You should encourage people to talk about themselves, to talk about their interests, and perhaps you can find a mutual ground to continue that conversation. Is there any experiences that you share that you might help strengthen that connection? Is there anything that people feel really passionate about talking about? Food and travel are great examples of those. I think showing empathy is very important as well. Perhaps the person is focused on their task at hand and they may not have time to communicate, they may not wish to talk, and it's about understanding from the perspective of the person that you're speaking to. Demonstrating your own value is a crucial skill. Sometimes it can feel quite uncomfortable talking about your accomplishments or your achievements or even your own story. But the reality is, if you don't demonstrate your value, nobody will be able to do it for you. This could open up other opportunities with the person that you're speaking to, and it could even help them in the long run. It's important to understand that there is a fine line between being boastful and just telling people a little bit about your story. When you are communicating, it's always important to listen to the person that you're talking to and encourage them to talk a little bit about themselves. If you can get them to talk about a subject that they're very passionate about, it's a great way to start a conversation and build the foundations of a relationship. One of the best ways to find that connection is by talking about their interests, not your own. To be a great communicator, it's important to really understand the person that you're speaking to. Perhaps you can adjust your tone of voice or even your vocabulary to be able to create a better connection with that person. In hospitality, you continue to meet new people from different backgrounds, different paths and different cultures. And the way that you communicate through your tone of voice, through your vocabulary, is a very important asset to be mindful of. If you yourself becomes adaptable with those points, you can create a much stronger relationship with the individual. A key element to communication is also knowing when not to talk. You need to have time to listen to the other person. Perhaps you also need time to give thought process for a response. Sometimes saying nothing at all can actually be a much more appropriate response. I find it's vitally important to have the power to be able to recall somebody's name. There's an old quote that says, "A name to a person is the sweetest sound in any language." Once you've remembered somebody's name and you've used it, the person that you're speaking to feels an incredible sense of value and importance. If you wish to read more about verbal communication, there's an incredible book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. It goes into great depth of the importance of verbal communication. Non-verbal communication is using your body language or even perhaps imagery to convey your message. I'm going to give you a couple of examples of body language communication. A lot of these can be involuntary, and it's important to be able to understand and recognise these responses in people. Perhaps they're using a hand to cover the mouth to hide a smile or a frown. Perhaps they don't want to show you any emotion. Perhaps they nod the head in agreement. Or perhaps they put their arms in front of them to showcase how they're feeling and how defensive they are about a subject. Perhaps they feel uncomfortable about this topic. A good sign that somebody's feeling impatient or hurried is the use of finger tapping. One of the first things I was taught at the Savoy was how important it is to make eye contact with somebody. You create a feeling of trust. That, alongside the use of a smile, can really help bring somebody's energy up and dictate how somebody feels for the rest of the day. You often find that a smile can be contagious, and the use of a smile can often spark and create that energy and emotion inside the person that you're speaking to. It really helps bring up the energy in a room, and you can create a much more positive environment and engaging atmosphere for the person that you're speaking to, or even your guests inside your venue. So one of the most commonly used forms of communication is an email. Next, we're going to run through all the basics and everything you need to know about how to use the most popular form of workplace communication. So, let's compose a new message. At the top, we have the recipient section. This is where you write the email address of the person that you're going to communicate with. So CC, located in my browser on the right hand side, means carbon copy. You add people's addresses here if you wish them to see the information in your email chain. BCC stands for blind carbon copy. You can add addresses in here which will not be seen by other people in the email chain. The subject line in the email is a great way to capture the reader's attention and set out what you're going to be discussing in the email chain. Your email signature is a great way to be able to showcase some of the projects that you're working on. Personally, I use it to be able to showcase my businesses, as well as having a link to the cocktail book that I wrote. It's an opportunity again to demonstrate your value. Sometimes you might be reaching out to people who may not know who you are or what you're about, so having some form of recognition in there also helps. Different companies and organisations have different standards about emails. Personally, I think all emails should be responded to within 24 hours. Perhaps the information that was requested might not be available to you yet, or you may not even have an answer. But even just acknowledging that you've received the email may be enough, and then you can handle the rest of the information requested at a later date. When you're replying to an email, you have a couple of options: reply and reply all. Reply will send your response directly to the person that sent the email. Reply all will copy in everybody in CC as well. More often than not, this is one of the things that gets often overlooked in email chains, and you continually have to keep adding people into the chain as well. It's also important to be able to manage people's expectations. If you're on holiday or it's the weekend, a great way to do this is by putting on your out of office. They get an automated response telling them that you are out of office, perhaps it's on personal leave, or perhaps it's a day off, but at least that way they have an understanding that you'll be getting back to them shortly. When you are composing an email, it's very important to make sure that you get across your points effectively. Obviously, everything that you're doing is written, so you don't have the opportunity to be able to put in your tone of voice. Some emails can often seem very aggressive, even if that wasn't the intention. So you must make sure that you read your email a couple of times before sending it, and making sure that you're getting your point across with a professional and respectful tone. Personally, I prefer a short and concise email. Let's remember that the majority of people that you're having this sort of communication with is always quite busy, and they may get hundreds of emails a day. I much prefer a short, to the point, professional email. It's very important to double check your email. Perhaps you made some spelling mistakes, some that can be quite costly. Grammar, vocabulary are also very important. I often spend quite a lot of time looking and thinking about different synonyms I can use in my emails to make sure that my point is demonstrated effectively. Sometimes you may receive an email which can trigger an emotional response. Personally, I think it's always better to take a step back, have a deep breath, and then think a little bit objectively about how the discussion may move forward. Personally, I like to get back to these emails the next day, once you've had a little bit of time to give thought process to the matter at hand. So now I hope you understand the basics of communication. We've discussed the different types, the importance of great communication, and the different ways that you can communicate. Such small, simple gestures may seem irrelevant to us at the moment, but these small things can really make a huge difference to building a relationship with somebody. Things such as eye contact, smiling, understanding their body language, and the use of their name can really help you build a great relationship. In the next session, we're going to be discussing organisation, how you can be more organised and more productive in your work.